All right, thank you for staying with the State of the Nation here on Daybreak on Citizen TV. Keep your views coming at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. We'll sample some of them. We're talking about all issues in the country so far. We're now talking about the issue of drowning in debt. Kenya is set to take new Eurobond to pay off the old Eurobonds. And I'll start with you, Cherargei. What are your views on this issue, considering that this government is the one that has taken the biggest debt so far?
Thank you, Trevor. I think the public debt has continued to become a challenge in the Republic of Kenya, and I think the country is technically broke, and in terms of the public debt. And you remember very well, by the end of June 2020, the public debt of Kenya did stand at 6.7 trillion Kenya shillings at that time, and I'm happy that I'm one of the few senators who voted against the rising of the public debt ceiling. I think it was in 2019 thereabout. And I saw the proposed through the budget policy statement of Parliament that in the proposed that we need to set aside 1.17 trillion Kenyan shillings to be able to service the public debt. So, Trevor, the country is technically under receivership, and you have heard also that the government is in discussion with the World Bank for more, I think, what we saw in the 90s, structured adjustment programs that they were known as SAPs, because the country cannot go under the company. It could be called receivership. But now that we're having discussion with IMF, it shows that the country is broke. And looking at the estimates that the budget has given of 1.17 trillion shillings in 2020-2021 budget, then the country has a problem. So the public debt continues to affect, of course, the growth of the economy. And we would have expected the government to be prudent in terms of public borrowing, both nationally and also internationally. And of course, somebody might question why the government has been borrowing heavily, because we have seen mega projects. I think the gains might not have been realized as at now, in terms of short term, but in terms of the long term, there are some of these gains. But we would have expected the government to be prudent in terms of its spending. Looking at, and you know, we had even the proposal where the Ministry of Treasury was suggesting that at least they should raise the public debt ceiling to around 12 trillion, sorry, because at the moment, as by June 2020, according to government records, it was standing at 6.7 trillion. Okay. So the country is broke. The country cannot, in fact, when you hear some of the proposals that even I've seen, although the budget finally, the supplementary budget today will be tabled in the National Assembly. Of course, the Senate, we are on a short recess, is that even the Treasuries and even the Budget Committee of the National Assembly is requesting that the members of National Assembly, including Otienda Amolo, is that they are likely to be forced to forfeit their CDF money that they were yet to receive. So you can see the country is struggling, the country is technically broke. So I hope this issue of public debt will be resolved as soon as possible so that we can get more funds to development, to counties, so that our counties now are struggling in terms of receiving their equitable shareable revenue, that every time they must protest to get the money.
Okay. Dr. Tiende, what is the impact of this country being broke on the ground? And is there any way we can get out of this situation? What options do we have now?
They always say that when you find yourself in a hole, you must stop digging. Kenya right now is in a hole in terms of borrowing. I am not for continuing borrowing because there's no foreseeable solution. And I always like when Senator Cherargei speaks, or when my friend Senator Mwatangi speaks, that they start by owning up, because it's about this administration. And the truth is, the impact and what caused all this is this administration, but especially in its first term. And it was caused by a number of things. The first was corruption. You know, corruption was budgeted. Projects were being created for the purposes of being passed in the budget, for the purposes of going to people's pockets. And a lot of the money floating around even now is as a result of corruption that was budgeted in the first term, 2013 to 2017. The second thing was about prioritization. There are things that were being implemented and prioritized which ought not to have been prioritized, and allocated a lot of money, including borrowed money. Of course, the third thing was exaggeration of prior projects. Yeah. Some of the projects which are good, even like the SGR and all, we could have implemented it at a lower cost. The tragedy with Kenyans is that even when we were saying that then, even when Raila was saying that then, they said it was politics. Now they see the impact and they don't know how to deal with it. I am not for raising the debt ceiling. I am not for continuing to borrow. I think there comes a time when we must just sit down and say, okay, we basically almost hitting rock bottom. What is it we need to do? Because continuing to borrow is not the solution. Yeah. You cannot continue to borrow and then borrow to pay what you've borrowed, because that's just postponing the problem. Yeah. And the problem keeps getting worse. I think that we just need to sit down and agree on what needs to be prioritized. Yeah. As we do that, and as he speaks, I hope that Senator Wamatangi will start by apologizing to Kenyans that for the first time in just 8 years, we've gone to such levels that we've not seen in the last 58 years.
First of all, do you have CDF funds?
Yeah. CDF is really, and it's a real problem. You know, we are 3 months to go for this financial year, and for CDF, we've received less than 10% of what we are supposed to receive. And on the ground, people don't know, because we promised people, you know, children bursaries, we promised projects, and people are wondering, what's wrong with this member of parliament? I really urge them to understand. I know it's a problem even for governors in the counties. It's a problem for us as members of parliament, that people say you had promised and you prioritized this. It's now 9 months down the line, it has not come. Let Kenyans understand that we are all in this problem. But even as we are in it, and we are really urging government, and we are strong on that, that when Parliament approves a budget, then you must bring a budget that is realistic, because once it's approved, then it raises expectations. When you raise people's expectations and you don't meet them, then it leads to frustration. Okay. So CDF, we have a problem, but I know that they are trying. I think last week they released some little money, like about 9 million or so per constituency. I foresee that by the end of this financial year, we will not have received even 50 or 60% of what we are supposed to receive, but we are insisting that at least we need to get it, because that's money that goes down to the grassroots. Yeah. It's not money that is lost somewhere in corruption.
Okay. Senator Wamatangi, Otiende wants you to start by apologizing.
He's trying to direct my debate from afar on what I should say. But Trevor, can I first start by reminding my lawyer that I've never been the Cabinet Secretary for Finance or Treasury. Neither have I ever been the Chairman of Budget and Finance in Parliament. Yeah. All I've been is the Senator for Kiambu County, and now this time the majority chief whip.
Under the Jubilee administration.
Chief whip. But that does not mean that I do not take responsibility myself for the roles that should have been played and what should have been done by government in total. And remember, nowadays, Trevor, we do not have an opposition in Parliament. We have one house under a presidential system with a majority and a minority. And when decisions are made in Parliament, they are made and voted for by the whole House, not by part of the House. So for all decisions that have been made in the National Assembly and in the Senate, they have been made by both sides. That needs to be clear. Because, you know, if you ask me now, and that's why I wanted to start from, were it not that Otiende Amolo was prompting me to address that. But I wanted to start by this, Trevor, that the best way and only way forward right now is to start addressing the situation with boldness and with clarity and openness, such that people are able to understand where are we as a country, financially, economically, and how can we get out of where we are. And why did we get in there? I think if we start from there, then we can start managing things. Remember, Trevor, not only the government itself, but people in homes, not only in Kenya, but around the world, at this time are suffering. If you look at, for example, how much was collected in taxation in probably all the countries in Africa, you'll find that there has been a dip because of some of the effects of what we all know is a global recession as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And remember, we have said it here before, and I'm not trying to defend anything because I'll come very quickly to the issue that I want to raise. But remember, we've said here before, for purposes of enlightenment of our people, that government is not a businessman. Government has no other source of revenue other than taxation and borrowing. Those two are the only areas where government raises money. So if taxes have not been raised, if people are not paying taxes because they can't afford to pay taxes, because they don't have the money, their businesses are down, then what does government revert to? And that is the openness I'm saying that we need to address these matters with, such that we ask ourselves then, if for goodness sake we have to borrow, what do we borrow? Whom do we borrow from? At what rate? And when we borrow, where do we take it? I mean, if we start addressing things that way, then we'll be talking. But, I want to say this, Trevor, that I verily believe that for us to make progress and move from the hole we are in, or the mess that we're in right now, there are two things that we must do. First, we must cut off all expenditure that goes to either financing projects, financing expenditures of government, which do not have the immediate effect of enabling the economy to start moving. I mean, for example, if we have a long-term project that has been started by government that requires an investment of 3 billion, which, for example, is foreseen that can only take effect in the next 20 years or 10 years, that's a project we have to look at how do you fund. But if there are projects that we have started, and there are, of course, that can be finalized or finished, and within the next 1 year, they can connect the economy to enable other sectors of the economy to be productive, then those are the kind of projects that we need to target. So how do we raise these funds? Are we going to have to borrow? Are we going to have to introduce serious and severe austerity measures, cut off expenditure that's unnecessary, and then you can put whatever little you have in the basket and start moving? Because right now, and I want to say this very loudly, going to increase taxation to Kenyans is not a solution. You cannot tax Kenyans more. I mean, people are already reeling under the heavy weight of the taxes they are paying. So what we'll be asking ourselves is, if we are going to get somebody to lend us any money, we would have to see how much is it and where is it going. And then we agree, all of us, if we start apportioning blame right now, for example, and I want to, as I finalize, tell my friend Otiende Amolo, that the way forward now is not to turn and start looking back and say, whom do you blame? Remember, Otiende Amolo, since the handshake, we have been talking and we have been walking this journey together. Even before the handshake, people in Parliament would sit and discuss. And when the budget proposals are made, they are brought to both houses of Parliament and passed. Cabinet secretaries in their cabinet meetings take responsibility also for projects they have decided to prioritize. The person who have to wait to see which direction government goes is a mwananchi. And so the only person who will be saying, where have you taken us, is the Wanjiko in the village. And that's why I want to say that all of us as leaders, we have this time to rise to the occasion. Ensure that for the remaining 1.5 years, especially those that are in leadership, we are going to provide solutions that will see this impasse and the problem we have being resolved by putting food on the table back.
Dr. Mutua, how do we get out of this, and how has it impacted you on the ground as a governor?
Well, let me I'm usually very quick, but I'll be a bit long-winded like my colleague here, because this is a topic that touches my heart, and it's about the economy. We have to be very smart about how we approach economic issues. These are not just issues to play around. Money needs somebody who is smart, not just the way you're wearing your suit, but using your brain and looking at the world view. Why are we broke? Well, we're broke because Kenyans started getting a fever and a bit of a cough within the first 6 months. And let me clarify and say that Uru Kenyatta is my good friend. And I like him and I support him, but I'm not a sycophant. So I'm going to say it the way it is in reality. Within 6 months, Kenya started getting a cough and a fever. Within a year of the Jubilee government's or then TNA government's leadership, Kenya was taken to the ward. We were not feeling very well. By the time we were going to the second elections, we were already being moved to the HDU economically. When COVID came, we were taken to the ICU. And the Kenyan economy right now is in ICU, in danger of actually collapsing, as our learned friend has said. Where did we go wrong? You know, during Kibaki's days, we sat down. And I want to thank the late David Nalo with Professor Anyang' Nyong'o. They came up with the Economic Recovery Program. And together with Mwiraria, there was a Governor Mulei and others. We sat down, Ambassador Mudhaura, President Mwai Kibaki, and looked at how do we recover, you know, how do we turn around this country? 2004, after so many years of bad economics, it was really bad. And we decided let's grow the economy. Let's make it easier for money to go around. Let's bring in investors, but also let's get out of the problem of the Bretton Woods institutions, the IMF and the World Bank, with their structural adjustment programs, which some people called strangling African people, because it's a valve to make sure that they control you, because you've really been, you've not had very good fiscal policies. When you see the IMF coming in, World Bank, it means you may misbehave. You cannot really run your economy properly. And we got them out. That's why donors stopped being donors. They became development partners. We could do things within. But now we've gone back to where we were. It's a big shame. It's a big shame. I think Kibaki would be heartbroken. And he's probably heartbroken that we've gone back to where we had actually fought and freed ourselves from. Now, our economy is not doing very well. Why? Because we've had more politics than development programs. The evolution has really helped, but the politics have dominated. And we've had what I would call minimalistic and village-based political solutions for economic problems.
Okay.
Let me clarify. You see, when you've got leaders who are spending majority of their time going for harambes, going to build, spending money in harambes, in churches, in schools, in institutions, you are really not growing the economy. It's a very backward and poor economic thinking, because harambes are important, but they are a signal that the people you are helping, the society you are supporting, does not have proper economic growth or proper GDP to support themselves. For example, as I said last week, if you go to Rome, if you go to the US, if you go to Australia, you don't find people holding harambes to build the Church of God or to build a school. Why? Because the economy around it has been empowered. They have grown economically. You raise the economy so they don't call you for harambe, so that fungu la kumi can support that. But if you perpetuate the politics and the economics of going to churches for harambe, going to schools for harambe, everything is harambe, what you are basically saying is that you remain poor, we are the saviors. And it's a very, very bad thing. The second thing was about bureaucracy. I am apologizing, I said I'd be long-winded, kidogo. Our bureaucracy has not made it very easy. It's very, very difficult to do business in this country. The procedures are too many, they take too long. Investors are the ones that provide employment. It's very difficult to work in this country. It takes 18 months to 2 years for a foreign company to set up an investment in Kenya, from issues of lands, taxation, employment, everything. It takes what, a month in Rwanda for the same? Will I stay here or go to Rwanda? So we are to blame because of all these bureaucratic procedures that once I'm president I'll get rid of immediately, because we need to grow the economy. It's actually worrying that we are suffering economically and yet we've not had hunger. You see, during Kibaki's days, we were faced with drought, which really milks the economy. We've not really had drought during a really serious drought during Uru and Ruto's government. So we shouldn't even be there. And lastly, the issue of corruption. Investors say it's very hard to work in Kenya because of corruption. There's inflation of doing business. When I build roads in Machakos for 19, 20 million, they say, ni barabara buyers datoka. The barabaras are still there. It's because they're used to building the roads at 90 million. The actual cost is 15 million, but the rest is eaten by men and women in this country. Who suffers? Mwananchi. So we need to really refocus and agree that we've had a corruption problem. Money to counties. We are still owed nearly 50 billion, 47.9 billion total from Kenya Development Support Program, money from the World Bank, We've borrowed from the World Bank that should be in counties, is being held in treasury, is not being spent because they are not allowed to spend that money as part of the agreement. Why isn't that money coming to the county so we can spend it and get money circulating? This hoarding of money by the national government, by treasury, is one of the problems that we're facing. The bureaucracy is too much. We're in problem. I have not paid my doctors. Today is the 11th of this month. My doctors are not paid. I have not received my salary. Nobody in Machakos County has received salaries. We have not paid people. People have to pay rent, have to pay whatever, because we've not gotten our allocation.
Yeah.
And there's nothing seeming that is coming. So, in a nutshell, we need a smart way of thinking. We need fresh leadership in the future, because I don't know what happened. Uhuru Kenyatta was a very good Minister of Finance under Mwai Kibaki. I don't know whether they got into bed or got into a vehicle with the wrong type of people. Yeah. But really, the economy has really suffered under Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, and that's just a fact.
All right.
And they are bound together. They cannot separate each other.
Okay.
They say ati ilikuwa ya Uhuru. Hapana, walikuwa pamoja, wametuingiza kwa hii shimo pamoja.
Yeah, but Ruto says it's the best to take forward the legacy of
How can you be the best to take forward this legacy? Which legacy? The legacy of taking us to ICU? So he wants us to take us to the grave now? Because you can't be the one causing the problem and then think that you're the one solving the problem. Because realistically, his economics of going to churches and others is very backward economic thinking. Because that's not how you grow an economy of millions of youth who are looking for employment. Yeah. Our youth are studying, they are getting out, and they don't have jobs. They are back at home, and their sisters behind them and brothers are coming out, and so they don't have jobs. That's not, the country doesn't need to be led by somebody with myopic economic thinking. Okay. We need somebody who understands the power of consumer spending, the person who understands how to really have good fiscal growth based on curtailing spending, but also, you know, getting people, a lot of people, from mamambogas all the way to the big bankers to grow and have more money in the pocket.
Yeah. Cherargei, how do you respond to that? How do you then justify that the DP says is the best to take forward the legacy, and Dr. Muto is asking which legacy?
He's lost for words.
Yes, Cherargei.
Of course. He's used to acting, and you know, Governor Muto, I've had a privilege of sitting in Public Accounts Committee. What he's saying is not what is happening in his county, because looking at the audit report of Machakos County Executive, so it is very unfortunate. What he's telling Kenyans is the opposite what he's doing in his county.
No, let me interrupt. Stop being personal. You know, these guys, when they are defeated with logic, they get personal. Can you tell us why the economy is ailing under Uru and Ruto? Be specific. Stop being childish and personal here. Talking about Machakos. We are talking about the country. So tell us the solution, because answer the question. Stop being myopic.
Let him respond, Governor.
Senator, go ahead. I was patiently listening to what you are saying, so you should just be listening. Because what I'm commenting is in the public domain. It is not something extraordinary. What I'm saying is that the reason the Deputy President is saying that he's in a better position to continue with the legacy is that in as much as the public debts has spiral, and of course we have agreed together that the IMF even have coming up with a structured adjustment program, SAPs, and many other things, is of course the country is not doing very well, and you know you cannot take the country to receivership. But you realize that there are so many projects that are being undertaken, and I've seen my brother, my learned senior, I said even programs like SGR, there are so many, even over 10,000 tarmac programs that have been done in the country, is because they have been heavy borrowing that are financed some of the government projects. We might not see the impact now because these are huge projects that the impact and the value might be seen after the years. So when the Deputy President says that he's in a better place, is that he knows very well that there are many challenges. And I wouldn't want to go to the issue of having Harambes and what have you, because as Africans, it's our nature to be philanthropic. I don't think when you walk into an Harambe or you help anybody, it does not mean that you are in the issue of economy. But what we need to do, and I've seen people like Governor Mutua and the rest have been waiting for President Uru endorsement, yet they are here condemning President Uhuru by saying he has failed. So you can't have double speak in some of these issues. But finally, Trevor, I want to assure you that for the country to move forward, some of the people like the deputy president who have seen how the system works, it is be very, very easy for him to fix. His track record speaks for himself, even when he was the Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Higher Education. And you know, the Jubilee government started collapsing the moment that some of his powers were being taken over by the super CS. So technically, since 2018, the deputy president has not been part of the government agenda because, of course, the executive order and some individuals within the government that have been trying to move him outside the government. So that is why the government now is challenging. But I want to assure the Kenyans, as the deputy president has said, he has a critical agenda. And one of the points that I want to point out in terms of economic recovery, he has said even with these mamambogas and other struggling Kenyans who hustle, he has said there is a possibility that government, just like CDF, that can be allocated to support small enterprises, businesses, like the way we are using through Youth Fund and many others. So when he says there will be money allocated to support SMEs, I think it's part of economic recovery and also empowering many Kenyans who are struggling, who do not have a formal job employment. And I think that is going into the future, that is saying there must be economic recovery in terms of developing the country going into the future.
Okay. Dr. Tiende, are you buying that argument?
Of course not. Certainly not. I maintain that the problems we are facing now are not recent. They are problems that were generated by decisions, policies, and actions that were taken between 2013 and 2017. The deputy president is neck deep in that. And you remember, we were told, and that is how it has always been, that they were the dynamic duo. Every decision that was taken in government was taken with the full knowledge and support of the deputy president. There is no way he can now turn back and tell us that all those problems, ascribe them to Uru Muigai Kenyatta. I am not part of them. I am part of the solution. You cannot be part of the solution when you've created the problem. That's number one. Number two, as I said earlier, you know, we are in a situation where we are trying to borrow. We are going for Eurobond again. And do you know, to date, Trevor, we have not had the question of Eurobond 1 resolved. To date, we have not had the accounts of Eurobond resolved, even in Parliament. I sit in the Public Accounts Committee. I can tell you that that issue has always been, you know, it's people scatter around it to date. And that was in 2016. When money that you borrowed appear not to have gone to serve the purposes that it was borrowed from, then you continue to borrow without resolving it, then you are getting into more problems. I suspect that a lot of, and this is where I come back to my client and friend, Senator and Senator Chiregei, and all of them who were always in government then, that you can't just tell us, don't look back, look forward. For you to get forward solutions, you must look back, so that those who misuse things are held to account. I think that, yes, there's much to look forward to. And one of them is, and this is my third point, I think, as I was saying, that we need to reorganize. We need to just settle down and see what we can do. One of the things I think we can do is the suggestion that was made by some task force earlier. There are a lot of government institutions that do the same thing, and they are all funded. And there is no point. We need to rationalize government. All those entities, state institutions that keep doing the same thing and they are co-funded, it's not necessary, including the fact that all the things that counties do, you find national government has departments which are funded to do the same thing. All those things that independent commissions do, you find their government entities. We need to rationalize. I think if we rationalize government, we would not need to borrow half as much as we do. But having said all that, I need to assure the public that in the handshake, we came in not to take the blame for all the wrong things that Uru Muigai Kenyatta and William Samoei Ruto did. We came in to help Uru Muigai Kenyatta salvage what he can. Part of the problem in this salvation is that we have a disjointed government where you know, the driver gives a direction and the conductor gives a different direction. And they're all in the same thing. You know, I think we would be in a better place if the deputy president decided that if he does not believe in government, he leaves, so that at least Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta can take full responsibility for whatever actions he does. Right now, the DP takes credit for the good things that the president does and then runs away for all the blames that come with it.
Yes, you know, Trevor, I think my comment will be that, you know, as a way forward and thinking positively as how to help our country and our people get out of this and move higher. First is two things. We acknowledge that the situation that we are in right now is we have to refocus our policy. You know, and this I would speak about my own personal, as Wamatangi, policies in my mind that I think I would implement, and the structure in a way I would take if I was in a position, for example, to call out and structure economic policy. First, I look at an economy of a country like an iceberg. Trevor, you know how an iceberg looks like. You see just the tip, but the mass of it is under. And this is one of the realities and realizations that I believe should be always alive in the minds and eyes of our policymakers. That means that if you look at, for example, what you call flagship projects, big projects, and those major capital consumers, that is only what you call the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. Indeed, the mass of the economy is what is under. And if you were to compare it in comparison, the drivers and movers of the economy, those that make it flourish, are that underworld or that underwater. And that comprises of almost 70%. And those are the SMEs. Those are the Juakali people. Those are the mamambogas. That is the matatu industry. It is that lot of people. Those are the people who shake the economy. They're the ones who make it grow. Now, I think part of the refocus that requires to be there and to be done is to ensure that focus now, direction of resources and energy should be towards that 70% of the underwater. That is all those Juakali SMEs like I've mentioned. Yeah. And if you start heating up the economy from those ones, then the top will feel it. I believe part of what direction we should have steered more to was to ensure that there was a fair balance, such that as much as, because we have, by the way, the Jubilee government, when history comes to be written, in investing and building up projects in infrastructure, for example, roads, they will take the record. Right now, yeah, it may not look so because people are hurting when there is no ugali on the table. But if you look at the amount of work that has been done in ensuring that we have moved to another level and ensuring that we have roads, and that is in no doubt, they have been done massively everywhere. If you look at other major projects, even in energy, even in, for example, like transport, SGR and so on, notwithstanding the questions about cost, but the sheer fact that now we are there and you have got those projects in place and working, those are major achievements, and they have been done and done well. Now, I think the only disconnect, the major one, and I'm speaking that as somebody who has a good sense in my belief, in my thinking of how the economy works and how it should work. Trevor, if that balance had been there to direct part of those investment and the big energy to the other sector, and I believe that is part of the success of what would have been what was the Kibaki regime, yeah. Because the focus was also fairly balanced and quite a lot within the informal sector. If we push to that direction now, yeah, and connect what has been done now and that, then you can start to see some sense of better progress of the economy. And the taxman will not have to suffer the way he's suffering right now, the tax collector. because those small people will be in a position to pay the taxes they pay,
Okay.
and there'll be shareable revenue in the basket. Okay. And I think looking that way, we would say that we have a good chance to take the economy forward.
Right.
But I must stress, Trevor, that from here onwards, it has to take a lot of discipline,
Okay.
a lot of discipline in how to spend the little that the government is getting.
Okay.
Let me tell Otiende Amolo that Wamatangi has not at any one time then had the opportunity to sit there, but that opportunity is coming soon. and
Sooner than you think. Are you declaring you're running for president of Wamatangi?
Otiende Amolo, watch this space.
You remember me when the kingdom
And I
comes.
promise you that I'll remember you.
Are you declaring you're running for president of Wamatangi? Dr. Mutu, I'll give you the final say on this before we talk about the handshake anniversary just shortly after the
let me begin by apologizing to Honorable Cherengai for interrupting him when he was speaking, but also urging him that we need to be serious and not be juvenile in our deliberations. You know, we can't lower the standards of the degree of which we are discussing here, which is being taken very seriously. I'm a student of Mwai Kibaki and the Mwai Kibaki economics. The man that Cherengai supports all the time is a student of YK2, as Jirongo, the youth for KANU, and the amount of corruption that was there. And he talked about the records of his man are there to see, yes, but they're the records. I mean, I was in government when he was suspended about 10 years ago because he had a criminal case about corruption where he was accused of receiving nearly 100 million, selling government land to another government agency and pocketing it. I mean, he was accused, he was let go later on, but the fact that he was actually charged, case number 973 of 2004, in court because of such crimes shows where you're coming from, you know, and people don't really change. He's been accused of so many corrupt issues. Hii yote ni kuekelewa. We always have to ask ourselves, because this economy needs somebody who is clean when it really comes to handling people's money, because this is money we collect from our taxes, and you cannot have a wolf in charge of the sheep. Now, Uhuru Kenyatta is also to blame for a long time for looking the other side on really not clamping hard on some of these problems that we've seen among some of the people around him, Ruto included, that might have led to where we are today. And my good senator said, I'm waiting for endorsement. I'm not waiting for endorsement. I'm not one of those people who are like hyenas waiting for the hand to fall. I'm not waiting for endorsement from Uhuru Kenyatta. You know, I'm my own man. His support is welcome. You know, he's my good friend. But anybody who is endorsed by Uhuru Kenyatta will fail, because Kenyans don't take it very well when you're endorsed by somebody. You fail. Unless it's unless it's a group that endorses you. But one person endorsing you in this country, especially the president, you'll fail. That's why Mwai Kibaki never endorsed anybody. So I'm not waiting for endorsement. I'm not controlled by anybody. So I can come to this show and I can criticize Uru Kenyatta, I can criticize Raila, Ruto, Wamatangi, Mutua, everybody, because I'm not beholden to anybody. I can tell Kenyans the truth as it is. I'm not a sycophant. The way we need to turn around this country is that we have to have an efficient way of doing things. We have to go back and look at how did the world economy recover after the Second World War? How did the world economy recover after all the issues that they faced in the 70s and 90s? And that is where we need to industrialize. We need to put our energies in making sure that the judiciary system is well funded, works efficiently, so that people know that when they come to Kenya and there's an economic commercial dispute, it will be resolved within a month or 2 months, not 7 years. So you don't bring your trillions here and then it stays in court for 10 years. You know, so we need to give confidence to the rest of the world that if you come here, we can build infrastructure with you, we can move. We need, I remember when President Uru started that equity was it called equity program? What is it called? That program of the road program, whereby it was brilliant, where you get people to get money, private money, they build roads and then they're paid by the government over time. I think it was the equity program. I can't remember the real name. And it failed because of corruption. I had people coming to talk to me and telling me, Uhuru is your friend, why did you talk to him? Ile pesa tunaulizwa, the back you know, the money we are being told to take places? Why is it that we've paid 7 billion, 10 billion for dams that don't exist? These are problems that are facing our country that need a solution, and it has to be done well. When I drive to Nairobi from Machakos, I'm amazed and happy with the development of the highway being done under PPP. That's like the only PPP we've had in this country. You know, we need to learn to have more PPPs.
Yeah.
Let's use other people's money. But the bureaucracy that is there for a private-public partnership is so much that no person wants to get into it. Let's simplify the way we do things. Let's make things better. And now, finally, I'm in agreement with the borrowing right now of the Eurobond to take care of the other loans. Let me explain it, because people may say, we're just borrowing. No, no. It's called debt management. Ukiwa na mikopo mingi, even in the private sector, they tell you, Matangi, uko na mkopo, consolidate your debts into one. We take care of those debts so that now you're servicing only one debt. So if it's debt management that you are going for, it's a good thing. Then maybe you collapse it so that you have a lower interest rate and you don't have all these other forces you know, on your neck all the time. So this Eurobond, if it's for debt management, then it's okay. Then that way we're only paying one person. But you see, I'm saying that because I understand economics, I understand fiscal policies, I understand how it's done. So that's why the discussion needs to be of understanding what ails this country and who can solve it.
All right, I have to take a quick break here. When you come back, Cherargei, I'll start with you so that we will review the handshake 3 years on. Has it achieved anything? But that is right after the break. The anniversary was just about a day ago, if I'm not wrong. And at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya, hashtag Daybreak. We'll sample your views. We see them. We are actually already sampling them in just a bit.